since even Minji Shin, the girl who'd just arrived in America and didn't speak English, was given the role of Summer, no questions asked. But I kept my mouth shut and scheduled an interview. The next morning, I pulled my hair into a high ponytail and brought down 2 long wisps at the front, which I decided would henceforth be my signature look. I borrowed my mom's Ann Taylor sleeveless turtleneck, paired it with a plaid miniskirt, and thought, "Damn, girl, well played," when I saw my reflection in the school bus window. For the interview, I sat before a tribunal of Jessica and her posse as they interviewed me with an air of authority only a group of yellow-haired white girls with trust funds could muster at the age of 11. And by the time recess was over, I was confident I'd nailed it. I floated through the rest of the afternoon with the smug self-satisfaction of a girl with recess plans locked down for the rest of the year. I was waiting to board the bus home when I was informed that my application for Clueless, the recess game, had been denied. Again, I saw my reflection in the bus window. The long wisps of hair framing my face looked stringy and stupid. Who was I fooling in my too tight plaid miniskirt that I'd had to hold my breath in to button? I was 10 going on 11, and already my mom's clothes were too small. I hadn't felt self-conscious about it up until that moment. That was the day my pace slowed and everyone else's progressed. As we got older and my classmates threw parties and developed Adderall dependencies, I spent the majority of my time alone, watching TV and giving pretend interviews about my life as the latest cast member of Dawson's Creek and Joshua Jackson's girlfriend. That year marked the origin of my shame. It was when I became cognizant of my hooked Iranian nose, my towering height, and the folds of flesh jutting out over my waistband. It was also the year I wrote my first script, a comedy sketch show called Friday Night Live that featured an ad for a product called Vomlet, the omelet made of vomit. When I pitched the idea for this book, I was having a moment. I'd just released my first film, Appropriate Behavior, and when it premiered, I received more attention and praise than I'd thought possible for a girl like me. This led me to believe that life was split between 2 phases. An ugly duckling period followed by a swan rest of your life. I assumed that everything I'd faced up until that point had been the price of admission, and that I was finally the swan I'd always hoped lay dormant beneath my old nose and about 40 pounds of baby fat. I decided to write a book that could serve as a guide for the misfits. I overcame the worst things that ever happened to me, and so can you. But then swan life soured, and I still had this book to write on how I'd made it. They say you'll grow out of it, but you might not. Yes, you'll eventually grow into something new, maybe even something spectacular. But if you're anything like me, you'll always clutch the moniker loser close to your heart. At first, it'll feel like a handicap, but eventually, it'll transform into a superpower. Because being on the outside offers up the best vantage point from which to observe and skewer. Now, almost a decade after I began writing this book, I see it as an artifact of who I was and who I became from 19 to 39 as I inched my way into adulthood by making every mistake possible. 17 magazine had a column called Trauma-Rama that brought me a lot of joy in the 90s. Girls wrote in their most embarrassing stories anonymously. The boy I have a crush on mistook my tampon string for a loose thread on my swimsuit and pulled it out at a pool party. I was home alone, out of clean clothes, and heading to the laundry machine naked when I ran into my dad and 3 of his coworkers. During my teens, that column was the only thing I could relate to. And sometimes it feels like my years on Earth have been a compilation of one trauma-rama after another. Humiliating, a bit disgusting, and actually pretty funny if you take a step back. These essays are my ode to trauma-rama. They recount the most cringe-inducing moments of my life, the ones that form me. I wrote it for the ugly, the unfuckable, the horny, the insatiable, the foreign, the misfits, the rejects, the outcasts, and the losers. The ones who talk too much, want too much, love too hard, and too fast. Who lay all their